For 50 years, every country on earth needed dollars to buy oil. It wasn't law, it was force. Henry Kissinger made a deal with Saudi Arabia in 19... Oil would only be sold in dollars, and in exchange, America would protect the kingdom. That single agreement made the dollar the world's reserve currency, made America the richest nation on earth, gave the Federal Reserve unlimited printing power. But that system is dying right now. China and Saudi Arabia just made their first oil deal in yuan. India is buying Russian oil in rupees. Brazil and Argentina are trading in their own currencies. The BRICS nations, representing half the world's population, are building a new financial system that doesn't need dollars at all. And when the petrodollar dies, America's debt becomes unpayable. The dollar collapses, and everything you own that's denominated in dollars ... becomes worthless. This isn't theory. It's already happening, and time is running out faster than anyone's telling you. Let me take you back to a moment that changed everything. August 15th, 19... President Richard Nixon appears on television, 9 o'clock at night. No warning. He tells America that the dollar will no longer be backed by gold. The Bretton Woods Agreement, the one that made the dollar the anchor of global finance after World War II, was dead. Just like that. Most Americans didn't understand what it meant, but the elites did. They knew that without gold backing, the dollar was just paper. Faith, a promise, and promises can be broken. 3 years later, oil prices had quadrupled. Arab nations embargoed the West. Gas lines stretched for blocks. Panic set in. But Henry Kissinger saw something else. An opportunity. He flew to Riyadh, met with King, and he made an offer the Saudis couldn't refuse. Sell oil only in dollars, and America will protect your regime forever. We'll sell you weapons. We'll guarantee your security. We'll make you untouchable. The Saudis agreed. Then Kuwait agreed. Then the UAE. Then every single OPEC nation fell in line. Suddenly, every country that needed oil, and that was everyone, had to hold dollars, had to buy treasury bonds, had to prop up American debt whether they wanted to or not. Do you see what happened there? America turned its currency into a global tax. Every nation on earth was forced to work, to produce real goods, to extract real resources, just to acquire the dollars they needed to survive. And what did America do with this power? It printed money endlessly. The Federal Reserve created trillions of dollars out of thin air, and the world had no choice but to accept it. Because without dollars, you couldn't buy energy. And without energy, your economy died. This wasn't capitalism. This was empire, the largest wealth transfer in human history. And it was invisible. Most people never even knew it was happening. But the numbers don't lie. In 1974, America's national debt was $480 billion. Today, it's $36 trillion. How do you accumulate that much debt and not collapse? Simple. You force the world to finance it. You make your currency the only option. You build a system where everyone else has to lose ... so you can win. But empires always make the same mistake. They believe their power is permanent. They think the rules don't apply to them. They convince themselves that the system they built can never be dismantled. And that arrogance, that absolute certainty that the game will never change, that's what destroys them. The first crack appeared in 2008, the financial crisis. Wall Street nearly collapsed. Banks that were too big to fail failed anyway. The Federal Reserve printed $4 trillion to save them. $4 trillion, and the world started asking questions. If America can just print money whenever it wants, why are we treating dollars like they're valuable? Why are we holding treasury bonds that pay almost nothing? Why are we financing America's debt while our own people struggle? The trust started to erode, slowly at first. Then, faster. China saw it first. They started making quiet moves. Bilateral trade agreements that bypassed the dollar, currency swaps with Russia, Brazil, Argentina. They began stockpiling gold, thousands of tons of it, while America was busy fighting wars in the Middle East. And then came the moment that changed everything. March 22nd, 2023. China and Saudi Arabia announced their first oil deal in yuan, not dollars, yuan. The same Saudi Arabia that Henry Kissinger locked into the petrodollar system almost 50 years earlier just walked away. Do you understand what that means? It means the foundation of American financial dominance. The one thing that made the dollar untouchable, is crumbling. And it's not just Saudi Arabia. The United Arab Emirates is now accepting rupees for oil. Russia is trading energy in rubles and yuan. Brazil and Argentina are settling trade in their own currencies. Nigeria is pushing for payment in naira. Even France, one of America's oldest allies, is quietly discussing UN-denominated deals with China. The exodus has begun, and here's what nobody's telling you. The BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, they represent 45% of the world's population. 3.5 billion people. Their combined GDP is now larger than the G7. And this year, they're launching something that could end the dollar's reign forever. A new currency, backed by gold, backed by commodities, backed by real assets instead of empty promises. They're calling it the BRICS currency. And over 40 countries have already expressed interest in joining. Think about that. 40 countries. That's not a fringe movement. That's a revolution. And the message is clear. We don't need you anymore. We don't need your dollars. We don't need your Federal Reserve. We don't need your permission to trade. We're building our own system, and you're not invited. If this is making you uncomfortable, if you're starting to see the walls closing in, you need to hear what comes next, because what's happening now is just the beginning. Make sure you're subscribed. Hit that notification bell, because the revelations coming in the next few minutes are going to change how you see everything. Let's talk about what happens when the petrodollar dies, because this isn't speculation. This is math. Right now, the US dollar makes up 58% of global reserves. That means central banks around the world hold dollars as their safety net. But 20 years ago, that number was 71%. It's falling, and it's accelerating. When countries don't need dollars to buy oil, they dump their treasury bonds. They sell their dollar reserves. And when that happens, the value of the dollar collapses. But it's worse than that. America's entire economy is built on cheap imports. Your phone, your clothes, your car, your food. Almost everything you buy is made overseas and shipped here. Why? Because for decades, America printed dollars and traded them for real goods. We gave the world paper, and they gave us products. It was the greatest deal in history, but it only worked because the world had to accept our dollars when they'd rather have yuan or rupees or gold. Those imports become expensive. Overnight, inflation doesn't just tick up. It explodes. And then there's the debt. $36 trillion. Who's going to buy that debt when the dollar is no longer the reserve currency? Right now, China, Japan, and Europe buy treasury bonds because they need dollars. But if they don't need dollars, they stop buying. And when the buyers disappear, interest rates skyrocket. The government can't pay its bills. Social Security collapses. Medicare collapses. The military, the one thing America has always been able to fund no matter what, runs out of money. You think that sounds dramatic? Look at what happened to Britain. In 1918, the British pound was the world's reserve currency. The sun never set on the British Empire. They controlled a quarter of the earth's land. They ruled the seas. They financed the world. And then it all vanished to world wars. Crushing debt. Loss of colonies. By 1945, the pound was finished. America took over. And Britain, once the richest, most powerful nation on earth, became a secondary player. A memory. A cautionary tale. But America won't fade quietly like Britain did. America has weapons Britain never had. Military bases in over 80 countries. A navy that controls the oceans. Alliances that span the globe. And a political class that would rather burn the world than admit defeat. So what happens when the empire realizes it's losing? It doesn't retreat. It lashes out. We've already seen the warning signs. Economic sanctions against Russia, that backfired and pushed them closer to China. Tariffs and trade wars that disrupted global supply chains, threats against Saudi Arabia when they cut oil production, pressure on Europe to stop buying Russian energy. Every move has been a desperate attempt to hold the old system together, but it's not working. Every sanction, every threat, every display of force, just convinces more countries that they need to escape the dollar system before it's too late. And here's the part that should terrify you. The people empowered, the ones who built this system, they know it's fallen apart. They've known for years. But they can't tell you, because if they admit the petrodollar is dying, if they say out loud that America's dominance is ending, the panic would be immediate. Markets would crash. Banks would fail. The system would implode before they could even attempt to manage it. So instead, they lie. They tell you the economy is strong. They tell you inflation is transitory. They tell you everything is under control. And while they're lying, they're moving their own money into hard assets. Gold, real estate, foreign accounts. They're preparing for the collapse while telling you to stay calm. Do you see the betrayal there? The people who created this mess, who printed endless money, who started endless wars, who promised endless prosperity, they're going to be fine. They'll survive the collapse. But yet, if you're holding dollars, if your savings are in a bank account, if your retirement is in treasury bonds, you're going to lose everything. And they know it. They've always known it. But here's what they didn't count on. You, people like you who are willing to look past the propaganda and see what's really happening. Because the truth is, this collapse is inevitable. The BRICS nations aren't going to stop. China isn't going to back down. Saudi Arabia isn't going to return to the petrol. The momentum is too strong. The resentment is too deep. The advantages of escaping the dollar are too obvious. The old system is finished. The only question now is, how fast does it fall? And what will you do to protect yourself? Let's talk about timing, because this isn't happening in slow motion. It's accelerating. In 2023 alone, the BRICS nations settled over $1 trillion in trade without using dollars. China's Belt and Road Initiative, the largest infrastructure project in human history, is conducted almost entirely in yuan. The BRICS New Development Bank is issuing loans in local currencies. Russia and China are building a joint payment system to replace SWIFT. Iran, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, the UAE, and Ethiopia just joined BRICS earlier this year. The bloc is expanding, and every new member is another nail in the petrodollar's coffin. Meanwhile, America's response has been ... nothing. No plan to replace the no strategy to maintain dominance in a multipolar world. No attempt to reform the system before it collapses. Just more printing, more debt, more denial. The Federal Reserve keeps raising interest rates to fight inflation, but that just makes America's debt more expensive to service. The government keeps spending like the party will never end, but the rest of the world is already leaving. And the American people, most have no idea. They're worried about gas prices and grocery bills. They're arguing about politics and culture wars. They're distracted by whatever crises the media is pushing this week. They don't see the bigger picture. They don't understand that the entire foundation of their wealth, the system that made America the richest nation on earth, is being dismantled in real time. And by the time they notice, it'll be too late. You want to know what the end game looks like? Look at history. Every empire that debased its currency, that printed money to fund its wars and welfare, eventually collapsed. Rome did it, Spain did it, France did it, Weimar Germany did it, and every time the people holding that currency ... lost everything. Their savings evaporated, their pensions vanished, their property was seized, and the elites, they walked away unscathed. They always do. But there's something different this time. Every previous collapse was regional. When Homie fell, China thrived. When Spain collapsed, Britain rose. When the British Empire faded, America took over. There was always somewhere else for wealth and power to flow. But now, we're talking about the collapse of the global reserve currency. The collapse of the system that every economy on earth is tied to. When the dollar goes, it takes everything with it. Supply chains, international trade, banking systems, governments. This isn't just America's collapse. It's the collapse of the entire Western-dominated order that's existed since World War II. And what replaces it? That's the question nobody can answer. Maybe China's digital yuan becomes the new standard. Maybe the BRICS currency becomes the reserve. Maybe we return to a gold standard. Or maybe we enter a period of chaos where no currency is trusted, where international trade freezes, where nations turn inward, where conflict erupts over resources, where the stability we've taken for granted for 70 years, just disappears. Do you trust a system built to keep you blind? A system where the rules are written by people who profit from your ignorance? A system where your savings, your retirement, your future all depend on promises made by institutions that have broken every promise they've ever made? Because that's what the dollar is now. A promise, and the world has stopped believing it. So what do? You can't stop the collapse. You can't force nations to use dollars. You can't print your way out of $36 trillion in debt. But you can see it coming. You can prepare. You can move your wealth into assets that aren't dependent on faith in a dying currency. Gold, silver, real estate, commodities, productive land, skills, anything real, anything tangible, anything that holds value when paper currencies fail, but most people won't. Most people will wait. They'll hope it doesn't happen. They'll trust the experts who tell them everything's fine. They'll keep their money in the bank and their savings in dollars and their faith in a system that already betrayed them. And when the collapse comes, and it will come, they'll lose everything. And they'll wonder how they didn't see it coming, even though the signs were everywhere. Even though people like me tried to warn them, even though the truth was hiding in plain sight all along. The petrodollar is dying, not in some distant future. Not in a hypothetical scenario right now. Today, while you're watching this, China and Saudi Arabia are conducting trade in yuan. India and Russia are settling deals in rupees. The BRICS nations are launching their own financial system. The world is moving on. And America ... The empire that thought it would last forever is being left behind. 50 years. That's how long the petrodollar lasted. 50 years of American dominance. 50 years of printing money and forcing the world to accept it. 50 years of wars and debt and empty promises. And now, it's ending. Not with a bang. Not with a dramatic announcement, but with a quiet exodus. One country at a time, one deal at a time, one currency swap at a time. Until one day, we wake up and realize the dollar is worthless. And everything we thought was secure was just an illusion all along. The question isn't whether the collapse is coming. The question is, what will you do about it? Will you ignore it? Will you hope it doesn't happen? Will you trust the same institutions that created this disaster to somehow fix it? Or will you open your eyes, see the reality, and take action while there's still time? If this has opened your eyes, if you're starting to see what they've been hiding, then you need to know what's coming next. Because the collapse of the petrodollar is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. There are other systems failing, other lies being exposed, other secrets that, once revealed, will make everything you just learned seem small by comparison. Subscribe now, because the truth is darker than you think. And the time to wake up is running out.